Hello there, 55 Diaries universe, and welcome to a very special edition of the 55 Diaries. Today is a very solemn podcast. We are going to pay tribute and honor a very, very special friend of the 55 Diaries, a very personal friend of mine. Um, I'm going to struggle with this, I'll be honest. A good friend of ours, a legend in my book, a good friend by the name of Jason Howard. And there won't be the typical 55 Diaries hijinks and antics where we we won't be having any hot pepper challenges or drinking raw eggs or any of the other kind of tomfoolery. We're going to be we want to give our dear departed friend Jason Howard a good tribute. And I'm going to have a hard time getting through a lot of this because Jason was a very dear friend of mine. And I want y'all just to bear with me. Jason, me and him was kind of like yin and yang. He always, he could always find positive in everything that I always found negative. And we had talked about the 55 Diaries, and he was actually on our next episode. He was going to be a guest, and me and him was talking about what we was going to do on that episode. We was going to debate about the value of all elite wrestling, and of course, I was going to be the one beating up on it and saying why it was so not worth watching, and he was going to find all the good merits in it. And me and him, we kind of talked about that a lot. And Jason, or in the wrestling world, he was known as Husky Howard, and Husky he owned a couple websites he ran. He did a lot of interviews. He was very well known in wrestling circles, and he was well respected. And I would get onto his sites, and I'd always just to tease him something, I'd always say something negative, like he'd put something big news about AEW, and I would get on there, but who cares, this is AEW. And he'd be like, don't start on me, old man. But he could always find something good, and I was always trying to find the negative, and we would just let me put it into perspective. Me and him once went to a WWE house show in Cincinnati. And one of the wrestlers by the name of Braun Strowman had a little accident in the ring. Okay, he was wearing these light beige pants, and he must have ate something that didn't agree with him before the show. This is a true story. And he had a little accident in his pants, and it was kind of obvious that he crapped his pants. And here I am. I'm like, dude, Jason, check it out. He crapped his pants. Oh, man. And I'm like laughing at him and pointing it out. And Jason looks at me and he goes, oh, man, dude, look at it this way. I mean, he could have just finished up the match right then and there and ran off. But no, that guy came out here to entertain us and give us a good match. And even though all this, he still stuck it out and gave us what we came here, what we paid for. I felt about that big. I'm like, yeah, you're right. But that was Jason. He always found something good. He loved his wrestling, and he had this autograph this wrestling encyclopedia, and he was working so hard to try to get all these autographs in it. And several times a week, I could count on a picture or a video where he's like, check it out, Looney, I got another autograph. And me and him was making these plans, and he was so excited. He wanted to go to Charlotte for the big, every August they have this big, massive convention where all the wrestlers come in. And he was so looking forward to it. And I was too. And it's the pandemic took so much from us. I have so much more to say, but we have with us a very special guest, Jason's mother, Bonnie. Honey, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Okay. Danny's sitting here beside of me. We have his book, his encyclopedia sitting right beside of us. I brought it home, and well, Jerry Davis made sure he got it. He knew it was out again. And Jerry got with me right away and asked me if I wanted to send here. And I said, yes. And so we got it like, I don't know, right away. I mean, a couple days ago. And so it's still laying on the counter here. Austin has one that Jason started for him when they go to wrestling things when he was little. And he told me when he was sending this one out to get it all done, he'd say, Mom, I wish I could afford to do Austin's too, but I just can't. And so, but he's got Austin. We've got Austin's. It's in, he had all that stuff in a tote. And when Mackenzie helped pack the other day, she found it, and it's all in this one room here. But yeah, Jason was quite the character. He's like me a lot, and he had mine kind of like, I don't know, when I got with Danny, Jason was 10, and he just I don't know, he just had a lot of our influence, and he would we couldn't be in the kitchen together. We would fight. we loved to cook. He loved it. The most possessions he had at the house wasn't clothes and stuff, certainly wasn't money. All the wrestlers, plus he's got he had kitchen stuff. Danny, how much did we pack and get rid of? And but I've been the last 2 days just sanitizing stuff through the dishwasher to give, because like I said, I have a friend, and she just texted me a while ago, asked me how we were doing. But she makes sure she's taking care of a lot of the homeless in Maysville. And so Jason would want that. I know there's been a lot of days lately that he's cussed us out. We Danny and I knew the other day that he was looking at us and saying, calm down, mother. And he called me mom, but he would, when he was being funny or thought he was being cute, he would say, calm down, mother. And I'd say, I don't want to calm down. And he'd say, calm down, it's okay. And that he always told me that, always. And so when we've been at his house this week, I felt that. And I thought I could go up there. Dennis was coming up the other day, and he had his dog was spayed, and she took some staples out, so he had to stay home. A friend of mine, I heard a creaking on the steps coming up to the house, like it scared me to death. And a friend of mine that lived down the street from him, and who knew Jason very well in the DG world, I turned around and she was knocking on the door, and I about peed my pants, I'll just say. Scared me to death. And so she came in, and then his dad called and was asking stuff. And then after everybody left and I got off the phone, I thought I could do it by myself, and I couldn't. I had to bolt and leave. So, but yesterday we had a house full, Derek and Chase, not Chase Workman, but another Chase, and Dennis and Don and me and Danny, and we were remembering a lot. Jason just didn't care about things other than like his family, and he cared about, like, he loved to cook and the wrestling world, and he cared about people very much so. But he just his boss told me that I didn't know this, but he talked about me all the time because my career was same as his, and he followed in my path. And he had 20 years with DG, and he loved what he did, and he was very good at what he did. But she told me that he always talked about me, and how he drew a lot from me, which I didn't know I had anything to give like that. Although I had 37 years, but he was just that kind of kid. And both my boys were turned out to be great, but he was just jolly and just a big old teddy bear. And he just always he called Danny step pops, and he would just come in and then this little Jack Russell that we got, we never had a small dog. Yeah, here he is.
Yeah.
Hey, little shit. he never really was an animal lover like the rest of us, but he fell in love with this little dog, and he took him rides in his Tahoe. He called it the hoe, and he would take him for rides. He'd come and got him, took him to his house a couple times, took him to Dollar General a couple times, and ran in and then ran back out. But he called him little shit. I mean, I'm sorry to cuss, but that's just what he called him. And he'd come in and ask him how he was, and he just he loved him. And Jack's missing. He knew something was wrong. To people that might not know things, I don't know. It was just the other night, Danny looked at him and he said, he's got tears in his eyes. And he did. I mean, he didn't eat. I mean, of course, Bucky, our golden retriever that we got from Dennis and Dawn, he hadn't been here. I picked him up from Mackenzie this morning when she went to work at Tumbleweed, but he hadn't been here since, gosh, a week and a half. And they've been playing, and both of them are alpha males. So they decided, to get on each other's nerves a couple times. But other than that, they're okay. But Bucky's out on the deck now, and Jax is roaming the house. So, but he missed Jason. He knew something was wrong with us. And that was it was heartwarming, but it was heartbreaking at the same time, because he looked pitiful. He really did. But anyway, Jason we miss him every day. And even though he wasn't here every day, I mean, he texts me several times a day, called me sometimes. Most time he just texted, and he would say something happened at work or this or that. And I'd say, well, and he just handled everything. So, and that's what his boss said too. She said, he grounded me. And she said, he was pretty much my favorite manager and I knew that because he had told me before. But he was well respected at work too. And just all the way around. I mean, the people that have gotten in touch with us, I didn't even know them. So, but anyway, I'm going to quit rambling. I've got to plug this thing in too. It's going to die. So, but I'll get off here and run over and get my thing.
Well,
so whoever else wants to talk can.
Well, anytime I stopped in at the Dollar General there that Jason managed, I'd always get my receipt, and I'd always go online and give him a good evaluation on the online thing. And then I'd message him and I'd tell him, hey, Jason, I gave you a good plug, except where it asks you, what did you buy? And I'd always say, but I put in there, I bought fireworks and moonshine off of you or something, or even like crack cocaine or something. He'd always be like, well, that's okay, just as long as you gave me a good plug. And once I put on there, and always, do you want to recognize a certain employee? And I'd always put, yes, I want to recognize Jason Howard. And once I put it, and I guess they can read what you put in there about him.
Yeah, they can.
So I put in there, I said, Jason Howard always he always welcomes you and goes out of his way to make sure you feel welcome. He always has such a pleasant smile. And then, so I guess he's seen it, and he writes me back, you really think I have a pleasant smile? And I said, no, I lied about that.
Yeah, he did that to me one time at Rite Aid. When I was before I retired from Rite Aid, he come in the store, and I knew when I read the review, the survey, because you can see all those. They send you all that stuff at the store. And he, as soon as I read it, I told one of my guys that I told my assistant manager and I told one of my key holders, I said, Jason did this, and they knew Jason because he came in, but he had bought something and he did a survey. He put that Bonnie was really helpful because she went out of her way to find the right size tampon.
That is awesome.
And I knew, I didn't even know I knew. I said, that's Jason Scott's son, that. and so I said something to him and he said, well, how'd you know it was me? And then he had somebody else do something. I said, Jason, but he did. He said, she really worked hard finding me. But that was Jason. I mean, that was just Jason. He just always, but he gave us a top notch, but he had bought something and he'd stop in and get things. And especially when he was working at My Fitness and working out at My Fitness, and he'd stop in and because it's in Maysville and actually it's right over there across from where he managed at Maysville. But yeah, he was definitely something else. He just,
that does sound just like him.
yes, he did. As soon as I read that, I called Eric and Donna into the office and I said, come here and look at this review and this survey. And Derek said, what in the world? And I said, you know who did this, don't you? He said, Jason. And I said, yep, he did. So, you know, we've had our good days and our bad days here, but we're to remember. And I've got gazillions of pictures and things. So, you know, we'll get through it. It's hard, but.
Oh yeah. Bonnie, I love that guy.
I
really
know he thought a lot. He loved you too, Mike. He talked about you all the time and all that bannering you all did. And he did it to me. I mean, Dennis, Jason, Derek, you guys, I mean, they call me the robot and they were always carrying on with me. And Dennis told me, he says, Mom, we're not gonna quit that. But they can do that to me. And I just go with it. I don't care. And but somebody used to think with Margie Bowie that owned the tire company down here. Of course, Margie, Jason was just like one of her kids. He grew up with her kids and she just lost a daughter to cancer. And she was at the funeral. And I know that was hard for her. And but she said that we bannered and carried on, and they did. And one of the locals here in town that used to work at the police station, Jason had to unfriend her because she was making a big deal of it on Facebook and said, Margie, why do you let him talk to you like that? And she said, Lorna, we're just playing, he's like my own kid. But people would take that stuff. And Jason finally said, I can't deal with her. And he unfriended her.
I remember him telling me about that.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think she was kind of crazy anyway, but yeah, he did. He just said, Mom, I can't deal with her. Of course, he dealt with her at the store all the time when he was here in Aberdeen. And he just said, I can't deal with that anymore. So, but anyway, that was Jason.
So we have some we have some other people on here, and we want to let them have the opportunity to tell their stories about Jason, and that's what this is all about, is a tribute to our friend and familyman. So I'm going to turn it over, and we're going to have an open mic here, and I'm going to mute myself, and everyone just feel free to jump in here and tell us whatever's on your heart. Don't be shy.
Now, Dennis, I know you got some crazy stuff you can tell.
I got cussed out today, probably.
Oh, did you?
I went to Family Dollar.
Oh,
I went to the Dollar Dinner on Flemingsburg. They didn't have what I wanted. So I was like, well, I'll go to Family Dollar. So I know he cussed me out today.
yeah.
Then I had time to go to Walmart. So
I'm sure he did.
I am going to walk into the Family Dollar with his badge on, and I'm going to buy something.
Yeah, I got several of his badges here.
I think he said he'd only been in a Family Dollar one time. And I think he actually bought something.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'd say he did. I'd say he let you have it today.
Yeah. Well, that last Saturday was, Mackenzie said we could go to the Family Dollar to get his shirt, or see if we could find a shirt there. That's the reason we was going to the Family Dollar. It's like, you want us to get struck by lightning? But yeah, we didn't go to the Family Dollar that day. But yeah, the last conversation I had with him was in his store, and I bought 6 cans of coffee, and he told me I had an addiction, and he wanted me to take the survey. Big on the surveys.
He was number one.
Yeah. But other than that, I texted him, but I never received nothing back. That was on the, I don't know what day that was on. It was on a Tuesday night.
Yeah, he wasn't texting much. He was sick. He was, that was probably before. Oh, that was before he was supposed to go back. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was, I talked to him on the 3rd. I think I texted him on the 5th. That was on a Tuesday night. And I texted him again on the, well, no, I might be wrong.
He went
on
to
that
urgent
date.
care on the 6th.
Yeah. I don't know when I sent him a text on a Wednesday morning. Yeah, that's when Mackenzie texted me, because I was worried about him. She said she got a hold of him. He just woke up. But
I think that might have been the day before he passed, because
it was.
He had an appointment, was supposed to go get those infusions on that Thursday when I found him. I was going to get him. And I had texted him and called him. I looked at my phone. I called him 24 times, and I just knew something. But I knew he'd been sleeping, so I thought, well, he's probably just sleeping. But when I got there, there he sat. But it's not something I'll forget.
Yeah. Well, I don't have too much more to say.
Randy, I know you and Jason talked a lot about your figures and all that, and I think you two are going to maybe meet up at the Bluegrass. Yeah.
Yeah, we had plans. He had sent the last message. Actually, he had sent me. It's probably a couple of days before he got sick, and he had sent me a flyer for the Bluegrass Comic Con. And I got a guy that works for me. He was talking about going and invited me. And then when I found out Jason was going, I was like, oh man, this is awesome, because I hadn't seen him in person for a minute. So I thought, man, this is going to be so great. And I asked him if he's going, and his reply was, yes, sir. And then the way me and Jason would always message is he would send me something and I would reply the next day, and then I would send him something and he would reply the next day. Like, it wasn't like, because, we both worked and had lives, and just, so we would reply when we could, but that was the last message. And I had meant to reply, and I was going to get a time set up for us to meet. And I was actually, he introduced me to a guy that sold wrestling merchandise, and I was talking to this guy, and he said, "You're a good friend of Jason's. That's how we met, right?" And I said, "Yeah, that I sure am." And he's like, "Well, I suppose you heard the bad news." And I was like, "Well, I don't know if there's been bad news on Facebook. I only get on Facebook just for a few minutes a day." And he told me that he had passed, and it was like the world just stopped for a minute, you know. I think I took Husky's death a little harder than I did my grandparents. You know, my grandparents have both passed on in the past couple of years. My grandpa just a few months ago. But you know, the thing is they're 85, 86 years old. You know, my grandpa was in a nursing home with dementia. You're expecting, I guess, that, it's about time, 86 is old. I mean, and with health problems like that, and not being young, you just kind of expect that they're going to say their goodbyes soon. But when you just talk to a guy and you got plans to meet up with him here in a couple of weeks, and at 40 years old, you just that hits different. And I don't think your brain is wired and on how to react to that, because I just lost it. And then the first night I didn't really think too much about it. I think I was just more in shock about the news. But then the next night, which was, I believe, on a Friday night, I was Thursday night or Friday night, I can't remember what night it was, but man, it just hit me, and I just sat there and I bawled like a baby. And my girlfriend came over and she hugged me, and it's funny, you were talking, Bonnie, about pets knowing stuff is wrong. My cat, I've got a cat that's 8 years old. He's huge. He's like 15 pounds. And he came into the living room, and he hides most of the time when people's over. He's not sociable, but he actually came into the living room, and while she was sitting there, I was crying on her shoulder, actually sat down at the foot of the chair, just knowing something was wrong. That they sense that stuff. And the world's just not been the same since then. I've just, I hit a lot of spots on the way home from the funeral at places that I'd wrestled. He had been there at those shows, and I stopped right across the bridge, of course, in Aberdeen School, which I think also functions maybe as a police department as
It
well.
doesn't anymore, but it did. They built a new one.
Okay. I remember there was a police department.
Yeah,
there
I
when
did.
we were wrestling at one point.
Yeah.
And I stopped there and took a few pictures, and then I stopped down in Manchester. I couldn't find the old Manchester school. I'm not real familiar with the Manchester area, but there's this dairy bar though that I used to eat at, and it's closed down now. So I stopped there and just reminisced for a minute, and then I went down to the Brush Creek campground, where I had this really big moment in wrestling. It was there was rain, and the show got started late. I don't even remember who I wrestled, but I remember that Drew Profit and Little Hawk Jake Ashworth had stole this big plastic Santa off of an abandoned house porch, and we crushed that thing over Scary Gary's head, and that thing literally shattered into a million pieces and got this huge pop. And I stopped there for a minute and just trying to remember some of these wrestling shows and some of the places we've been. But I've been out of the ring for 5 years, and I believe that Jason and I became better friends once I stopped wrestling, because I'm just going to turn my camera around here a little bit, because we both had this little addiction of wrestling figures. Now I don't have room to keep them in the boxes, but he would always keep them in the boxes and get them signed. And I've got a few signatures. I wasn't quite the signature guy that he was, but I always had a lot of respect for that, because I know how big that encyclopedia is, and I know how much it costs to ship, so like he would ship it, get it signed, have them ship it somewhere else and get it signed, have them ship it somewhere else and get it signed. And by the time it got back to him, I mean, he's got 40 or 50 bucks in shipping,
Oh yeah.
not counting the signatures. And because, I don't know if you've looked at postal rates, but they're not, they've went up. And I'm just like, man, this guy is, man, he's got a mission. His collecting is, it impressed me. And the last time I remember, I had this guy that had this collectible shop, and he was going out of business. He's like, buy all these wrestling figures. And of course, Husky emails me, hey man, heard you got a bunch of wrestling figures. I was like, I did. He's like, can you come up to Manchester? I can. So I brought a big trunk full of wrestling figures, and he just started going through them and picking them out. And he's like, I need this one. I need this one. I better stop. That's enough for today. And so that, you could just see his love and passion for collecting. And he was always sending me videos of these people saying, there's this one guy, he talks really loud. His voice is kind of annoying, but he always hosts these online wrestling signings. And he's always like, Jason, this is for you, Jason. Like, and I just really, this guy's voice just goes right through him. Why do you keep sending them to him, man? Like, he's got the most annoying voice, like, but he's also got the best wrestlers in there signing autographs. And oh, man, I tell you what, every week I went back through our Facebook messages and I clicked on all the pictures. And there's just figures after figures after figures after signatures after signatures, just pictures that we've shared over the years. And like, my God, man, what his passion just ran so deep. And me and Dude Rock were actually talking at the funeral, and he said he would be there setting up the ring and before anybody else was there, and tearing down the ring and the lightning. And he would do all these interviews, and he put way more into the wrestling business than he ever got out of it, because he didn't expect to get nothing out of it. He just loved it so much that he wanted to do that. And, and he'd been hitting me up for an interview for a while. Everybody told him, man, you got to talk to Randy Allen. You got to talk to Randy Allen. And I don't know why, other than the fact that I really like to talk. I wasn't the best high flyer or the best technical grappler. I wasn't the biggest guy or the most muscular, but I had a gift on the microphone. And they said, you got to talk to Randy Allen. And he contacted me. He was like, yeah, man. I said, I'd be willing to do one, but not right now. And then he contacted me a month later, and hey, man, you ready to do this interview? And he, I ain't gonna lie, he was a little persistent.
Oh yeah.
And I was not in a good mindset. I had went through a divorce, and just a lot of, work changes had happened, and a lot of different stuff had happened all at once in my lifetime. And and I was actually kind of on my way out of the wrestling business. But he just finally hits me up. It's like, hey man, when you thinking? I said, I'll send you a message soon. And a few weeks later, when my head got cleared, I sent him a message. We got the interview down, and he told me it was one of the top 2 interviews that he's ever done in his entire life. And that meant a lot to me, because, I put him off for so long, and he still stayed persistent, wanting to give me that interview, and just, come on, King, we need this interview. We need this interview. And finally, once I gave it to him, man, he was just blown away by it. And I don't think it's anything that I did, because all I did was just answer questions. He was the one who asked all the questions. But I think just because I was so responsive to them, and I didn't want giving like little 1-word or 1-line responses, I think it really just made his day. And he'd send me a message 3 or 4 weeks later, man, I still can't get over that interview. And it's been tough. I told Bonnie, the only regret that I have, we never had an ill word with each other. We never had any disagreements. He just always was just a great guy to talk to. So nice and so loving. And I said, the only regret that I have is I just didn't meet the guy sooner, man. I mean, I would have liked to known him, early on in my career. And because I think he started bringing Austin to them shows. I saw Austin the other day. He's like 19 now, or 18, 19. Yeah,
19, he'll be 20
like,
in December. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like 6 or 7, when Husky had him at these shows. And so, I mean, that's how long, I've we've grown up together in the business. And, when you're in a business like this, I mean, it's, you're on the road with these people, and Looney can attest. I mean, we would go to Chillicothe on Thursday night. We would go to the Beaver Oktoberfest on Friday night. We would leave Saturday morning and hit up the IWA in Columbus. And when we would leave there, and we would go to like West Union or Russellville or somewhere, and do a Bizarro or WWE show that night. And you're doing 4 matches in 3 days, and these people on the road become more like your brothers. That's your family for 4 days, basically. And it's just I dearly miss him. Like I said, I've taken this harder than I have a lot of other family deaths, just because it was so unexpected. And he's just a great human being. And That's all I can really say is he's just a wonderful human being.
Totally agree, Randy. And you're right. And I remember that show when they broke the Santa Claus over top of Scary Gary. I was there too. It was
Yep.
something else. I was looking at some of our recent messages with me and Jason. He had sent me a real funny happy birthday. Then the very next day, he sent me the link to so excited about the what they call the gathering there in Charlotte. And yeah, we was talking about getting with you, Randy, and a couple other ones, see if a bunch of us could go down there. And he was sending me a list. He's like the Mountie, Dirty Dutch Montel, the Tonga Kid, Eddie Sharkey, Tiger Chung Lee. He was just really pumped about all these. And he's like, "Do you want to go, Looney?" I'm like, well, I'll think about it. Of course, I was going to. And
Right.
yeah, and he's telling me all about Eddie Sharkey, and because I didn't really know a whole lot about him. And
Well, and that's the thing. Who does know a whole lot about Eddie Sharkey? I mean, I know the name and know who he is, but like, I can't tell you much about the guy. But that's how much Jason loved wrestling. Is he knows?
yeah,
You know?
he's telling me all the guys that he trained and where he was from, and all that. And I got a picture of Sabu signing his book and all that. And yeah, like I said, the thing that stuck out with me about Jason was he never had a negative word to say about anything or anyone. It was like he was always the defense attorney. I was the prosecutor. He could find something good to say about anything and everyone, no matter how bad I would trash them. That wrestler sucks, We was recently talking about this tag team 2.0 in AEW. I'm like, they were a mid-card jobber team ever rise from NXT. And he goes, "Dude, you got to look at their earlier stuff. They're really great." And I'm like, "They suck." And that was how our conversations always went. He always found something positive to say about everyone. And, he taught me a lot about that. He taught me a lot about life. Anyway, we got some others here. Derek, Lisa, do any of you have anything you want to share with us about Jason?
I think you guys have said it all. He was just a wonderful person. I'll never forget all our good times together, all the shows we went to. It just kind of brings everything back when Eric passed, He was, I know they're up there together, and that brings me comfort.
Austin told me he's having a hard time trying to get on. I don't know. I told him he had to download the Zoom first, but I don't know. He had a hard time trying to get on. So he just texted me a while ago. Come on, Derek, you can say something.
I just feel the same as everybody else. That guy was definitely one of a kind. Cared so much about other people. Hands down, one of my best friends. He was in my wedding. He was there for me even after my separation, which meant even more to me. I remember, actually, this might have been the only time he ever went into the Family Dollar was with me. We went down to Marietta for a throwdown at the Pound when AJ Styles and Kevin Steen, all those guys were down there. And I pulled into the lot, and you could just tell by the look on his face, like he was going to kill me. That was the number one sin I just committed. But yeah, we got super close just traveling the shows, and a couple guys that just liked to find the best wings and beer in any town that we went to.
Yeah, it's this has been difficult, but I think each of us can say that our lives have been impacted for the better by Jason. Hey, we got someone else connecting here. Very good.
It might be Austin, maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
He
Very
said
good.
he was trying to get on.
Okay.
Well, he texted me and
iPhone-
said he'd been trying to get on, so
iPhone 13.
yeah.
I tell you what, I'm going to pause the recording here for just a moment. Okay, we're back. We was unable to connect with the whoever was trying to connect with us, so we're back. I did want to make mention. I called Jerry Davis. He didn't know about the passing of Husky yet, and I called him up, and immediately when I told him, he just busted out crying, and I busted out crying, and we both must have cried for 15, 20 minutes together on the phone. That's just the kind of impact that Jason Husky had on all of us. He really touched all of our hearts and lives, and I just can't say enough how much he's going to be missed. As we wrap up this tribute, does anyone have any final words they'd like to say?
I just want to thank Bonnie for raising such a wonderful person. And I mean that in all honesty. He, like everybody said, you just can't say a bad word about him. There's no way.
Nope, he was a good kid. He
He
really
sure was.
His teacher, let's see, it was the day after he passed. We did, no, 2 days after he passed, I told Danny we needed to venture out and just kind of get out. It was sunny that day. It was a week ago Saturday. And so we ventured out and we did land at Kroger. And I was standing in the line and it paid for my stuff. And there's a gal that works in the Maysville Kroger that went to school with Jason, and her name is Gwen, I think. And I heard somebody say his name and something about 39 and something about this and COVID. And at that time, I wasn't in a really good state of mind. I'm still not in a good state of mind. As Jason would tell me, you're never in a good state of mind. But no, that day I was really, and Danny had walked kind of down at the end, and I thought I was going to go across the counter. I said, "That's my son you're talking about." And they were talking good thing. It wasn't that. She was telling the teacher, because this teacher actually, and I've forgotten his name, but I remember Jason talking about him. Jason was a good student and he was a good kid, and he wrestled in high school, which I knew a lot of people didn't know that. He wrestled until the middle of his senior year, and he was working at a called TK's, and Lisa, you know where that was. And
Yeah, he and Eric
yeah,
worked there
he
together.
crossed
I
the
remember
street.
that.
Yeah, he worked there for 3 years, and he would walk from school and go over there. And Jason didn't get his license till he was almost 21 because his cousin died on his 17th birthday in a really bad wreck. But his cousin was 18, and Jason always said, it'll never be the same. Not a birthday I've had's ever been the same, Mom. And so it was just awful. And yeah, Dennis, do you remember? But anyway, he would go to TK's and work, and then somebody had to pick him up, or Eric, after Eric was working there, Eric would bring him home because Eric was driving. But anyway, last week or week before at the store, I'm jumping around. He would tell me to stay on the subject. I heard his name and I heard all this, and I went, that's my son. And they turned around and looked at me, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so then I stood and talked to his teacher, and he told me, he said he was never caused a minute's trouble. He was always smiling, always pleasant. He just was, we loved him. And he said, I had him as a student. And I said, well, when in the middle of his senior year, as I started to say, he came to me one day and he said, Mom, he said, I got to talk to you. And I said, what's going on? And he said, I'm going to have to quit wrestling. And I said, okay. And anybody that knows me, I support anything they do. I support stuff. We're watching, I mean, we got football on right now. But the thing of it is I'm not as competitive as my sons are. And and so to me, it was okay. And I looked at him and I said, okay. And he said, I'm going to have to quit because he said, my grades are slipping. And he said, and I'm working and I just can't do it anymore. And I said, okay. I said, that's fine. That's up to you. He said, you're not mad at me, are you? And I said, no. I said, Jason, no, never. I said, that's, you know me, Jason, I'm not, it doesn't matter. It's what you want to do. Because he did soccer. He really did well in soccer. He had done little league. He had done t-ball. He had done even a little basketball. And so, but the year he decided to give up soccer, me and his dad had gone through a divorce, and I moved over here, and he just decided that he wasn't going to do it anymore. But he was very good at soccer. But he just, and I told him, I said, I support whatever you want to do. So his teacher told me, he said, we really loved him and I'm so sorry. And I stood and talked to him for a while Danny was waiting on me, but it made me feel good. And then I turned around and told her, I said, I'm sorry I yelled, but it was just, it was just a shock to hear him being talked about. It really was. And it was good stuff, but it was just, but his teacher just told me, he said, never a bad word, never a bad day with him. And I said, well, that makes me feel good. So just all those good memories.
Well, everyone, I think we're going to wrap this up. I did want to say one more time, Jason, my brother, my friend, we love you. We miss you. Our lives will never be the same. Never forget you, my friend. So this is Looney Mike Horton concluding this episode of the 55 Diaries podcast. Thank you all for joining us. Goodbye.